Hey everybody, welcome back to the Saltworks podcast. I'm your host, Hallie Dye. Today we have what we used to call Topic Tuesday, but Lindsay Stagg, your favorite co-host, is here today, and we are diving into really intentionality in your year. So we're covering things like word of the year. What is that? What is it not? What can you make it? Ways that we can pray about it and move towards that. We're talking about letting go of perfection in these areas and ways we can look at creating habits and rhythms and why those things would be important. It's a fun conversation. It's been encouraging to me as we've been working on it. We pray and hope that it encourages you. And here's my conversation with Lindsay. So yeah, this is the first time we've recorded in 2026.
It is.
So it took a little break, and then had to cancel last week's recording, and also I had sick kids, so that worked out.
Yes.
And so here we are.
Yeah.
We actually, so the topics that we're talking about today, we talked about at Mom Time last week, which was fun. That's
so fun.
Ministry for moms at our church, and it was really fun, and we enjoyed it, and then rolled around and we were like, you know what? Like, let's dive into those topics because I really have thought about it a lot.
I have
since, and so I think on one hand, like, I don't know how you feel this morning, but I can feel like, I don't know if insecure is the right word, but like question, like, is this helpful? Like, is this, because it maybe doesn't seem as deep. I'm putting that in air quotes, like as some other topics that we've gone into. But then at the same time, like, I feel like it makes way, like these are the things that make way for other rhythms and spiritual disciplines and like deeper relationships. And so I'm like,
it creates space for the depth.
It does. It does create space for the depth. That's a good way to say it. And I can feel that way, like that can be like my inner doubts, but then I'm like, but in my life, it's really helpful.
Yeah.
But it's just more practical, I think.
Yes.
So for our practical friends, they're pulling up a chair.
Absolutely. That'd be me.
Yes. But the people are like, I need depth and sustenance. Like it's there.
It's
Yeah. And so, and we get it.
Yes.
So we were kind of like backstory, I guess, to get started. We were asked to kind of come speak on these topics because we've talked about word of the year a few times on the podcast, and or it'll come up in someone's story or something. But then also just like, I hate to use the word resolutions, but like could be goals, rhythms, habits, that sort of thing. And like, especially in the vein of setting new ones or reestablishing, after holidays, whatever that looks like. And so we were kind of asked to do that. And so I think starting out with the why, if we could answer the question, why are these things important? To set it up, I mean, we kind of addressed this a little bit, like, but I'll flip this question to you. I mean, I have my thoughts too, but like, why is this important to Lindsay Stagg to reassess, to come back to this once a year? Like, why is that important to you?
Yeah. Well, I laughed in my head when you were like reset after the holidays. I'm like, we all need that.
Yeah.
Like after, weeks of just, no structure, no whatever. And
a month of cream cheese.
Absolutely. And cookies and fudge. And, it was not good. Not good. Good and not good.
Yeah. It was the best of times. It was the worst of
times. For sure, always need
Everyone
a little
had a sick week.
Yes.
One of the weeks you were sick. I don't know which one.
Yeah. We started off that way.
Yeah. We ended it that way.
Yes. I do think like, just while all of that it's a wonderful time and it's a great time. It is always a good, like, okay, let's take a deep breath and
who are
reset. We? Yeah. We've forgotten like how we function. But as far as I think just in my own life, I mean, I operate from routine to a fault sometimes. And so at the beginning of a year, it really is nice to kind of just pause and reflect, like think through. And I know we'll talk about some of that, as we go. But to think about, okay, maybe even just to think back as an encouragement of like, what changes did we make this past year? And like, how did that go? Especially as you move forward and thinking ahead. And I think it's also good to have a goal or have your gaze fixed on obviously Jesus first and foremost, but like something, because it kind of helps set that trajectory for the whole year. Even if I think sometimes we can get bogged down in the idea of like a resolution, but to just ultimately know that like, okay, if I have something, I have my gaze fixed and I have a goal, or I have something that's like, okay, we're going to attempt to set this new rhythm this year, then even if I stop thinking about it somewhere along the way, like there will be things that are reminders. And then like you get to the end of the year and you can look back and be like, okay, well, actually, no, like we maybe didn't always, stick to whatever that exact thing was, but did it create space that we didn't realize was there? And so I don't know, I just think it's important for one, I think it brings peace, like some of those rhythms, and having a goal can, excuse me, while I attempt to adjust my body.
Getting closer to the due date.
Yes. That cord just didn't want to work like it used to.
Well, same. And I don't have an excuse. So, I mean, I do have 3 excuses.
I was about to say, yes, you do. Anyways, but I just think it's good to start a year with some intentions and just, whether we stick to them strictly and remember them every second of every day for the whole entire year, I don't think that's really the point. Like, I think it is, how can we start off intentional and set a focus and move towards that?
It's almost like we have so many conversations throughout the year, no matter what area in life you're talking about or what stage of life you're in. So many times we come back to like, oh, I just need to be intentional, whether that's with your prayer life, whether that's with your relationships, whether that's with your walk with the Lord. We use that word all the time, but like that can be a little vague if you don't pinpoint what you mean to be intentional with,
right.
And it's like, you can have good intentions, but if you don't know what you're moving towards, it's not going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
We talked about too, and I keep coming back to this thought of, I think sometimes, the thinking can be like, oh, resolutions are cliche and they never stick, so I'm not even going to do that. Like I know I'm going to stop going to the gym 7 days a week.
Right.
On week 2, so I'm not going to even try, whatever that looks like. But I think it is really healthy to have a time of reflection, and it doesn't have to be January.
Right.
I know I've heard some people, they pick their word of the year or their focus or whatever on their birthday.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't be able to keep up with that probably. Mine's in June, so it's like midway through the year. But I think though it is healthy, like when I look at the Lord set up our life in seasons. He set up the weather in seasons. He set up our life trajectory in seasons, like high school, college, whatever that next step is, a career, is it marriage, is it kids? Well, there just are seasons in all capacities of the way he's created our world. And when you look at our year, we end it with sitting in awe of what he's done. We look at what he's done, what he came to do, and what he's accomplished basically for mankind. And like we come back to that, and that's so important. And like we ended our season, season, but we ended, before the break for the holidays, we ended that way, talking about sitting in awe and wonder of what he's done. And I feel like for me, like why it's so important to sit in January on like where, what do you have for me is like, where are we going? We've looked at where you've been. Where are we going? And like, it's not to say I'm in control. It's not to say I'm leading the way, but I do think like everything we're talking about today has to bring a level of self-awareness and a level of humility and the intentionality of sitting down and going like, Lord, where am I? Like, where do you see me at right now? Where do you see me needing to move, needing to be more intentional, needing to focus on? And so like, I think that's a good rhythm. Should I do that once a month? Probably.
Right.
You know, and I think you can, but like, I think having an overhaul at the beginning of the year, whenever that is, maybe that's the beginning of the school year if you're a teacher or you're in school or whatever, but having a time that you go, every year I do this at least once. Yeah. And so that in and of itself is a rhythm.
Yeah.
You know,
it is. Well, and I love the last part that you said about just sitting down and asking the Lord and having the willingness to ask, because I feel like in the past, like my misunderstanding, sometimes I think of like choosing a word and whatever, which we'll talk about a little bit of why I haven't ever really done it, is because a lot of times I think my focus is on like, well, what do I want from, what do I, what is it that I want from this year? Or how do I want everything is from my perspective and what I'm desiring or wanting out of a year, rather than sitting with the Lord and asking him, no, what is it that I need? Or what is it that you have for me in this coming year? So,
well, and like, how many times do we talk to someone who's like, this is my word of the year and I don't really understand it yet, and it's like, he's put something on your heart and it's like, I look back at some of the words I've picked and I thought they meant one thing. And then midway through the year, I was like, oh, like you were preparing me because you knew this was coming. And I think we can be a little superstitious in picking those focuses. Like,
I was a little scary.
Sure can. And I'm guilty of that. But I think it's not, well, I picked this year, so I signed up for the, the all-inclusive package, but it's like, no, like he's ahead, he goes before us, like he knows what we need. And so he's actually supplying. It's not a, well, I put the spare tire in my car last night and that's why I got, had a flat today. It's like, no, I'm so grateful I had this extra tire. Like he supplied me with exactly what I needed.
Right.
How wonderful. But like, we don't tend to think of it that way sometimes. We can be like, I chose this, but we didn't. Like, I was kind of explaining some things to the kids because like New Year's is one of those things for them that they're like, what do you mean? Like they don't write the year enough, right? They write the date sometimes, but like that's still kind of a weird concept to my kids, a little bit less so Bear than the others. But so I'm kind of explaining like, well, like it's kind of a time to think this, and maybe you have some goals this year. Like I want to learn to do this or whatever, and reflect back on the last year and look at, you're turning this age this year. What do you think that will look like? Just kind of explaining. And I was like, explained word of the year. And I was like, is there a word, comes to mind you want to pick? And Garnet was like, I think my word is going to be patience. And I'm like, ooh, bold first.
I mean, really? she
I'll not be joining you.
Head first.
But it's like, that is kind of how we think.
Oh, so. Yeah.
I wanted to read these verses too. And I feel like these probably will unpack themselves a little bit throughout this episode. But like when we were preparing to talk at Mom Time, like these were the verses that came to mind. And I've thought even more about them like in the past week since then about my word of the year. But this is in Ephesians 5:15-20, and it says, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery, but instead be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit. Sing and make music from your heart to the Lord, always giving thanks to God the Father for everything in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. And so I'm not going to unpack all of that right now. I think we're going to refer back to that some, just with how we're going. But I think those verses feel like they jump around to a lot of different subjects. But like when you really dissect it, it's living intentionally looking at, what do you have for me in the season? And I don't think when it says understand what the Lord's will is, I don't think that's to light a fire of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
I don't know what I'm supposed to major in. I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this season. Or are we supposed to homeschool? We're supposed to go to I don't think it's necessarily those specific things, although yes, like we seek that wisdom and we sit in prayer over those things. But it's like, what is the manner in which you want me to walk?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the question we're asking starting every new year or season. And like even looking at do not be drunk with wine.
Mm-hmm.
You can replace wine with social media.
Right.
Approval. You can be drunk with a lot of things and that you're not choosing to be filled with the Spirit's agenda.
Right.
You're choosing to be filled with something else. And so, not to change scripture, or misdirect that. I do think it's meant literally.
Right.
But I also think like that he's giving an example there of like, when you're drunk, you cannot live with, like cognizant of his will in that moment. And like, you can do that in a lot of other ways, even if you're abstaining from substances.
Right.
But then the way that it also ends with like speaking to one another with psalms, songs of the Spirit, sing and make music from your heart and give thanks to the Father for everything. Like it's not just saying don't do this, it's saying do these things. And so it reiterates like have a focus.
Yeah. Because
the days are evil. And we touched on that recently, like in a group. And I don't know what I don't know if you have thoughts on this, but when I read that the days are evil, I'm like, we have a real enemy.
Right.
And he has an agenda. And scripture tells us that's to kill, steal, and destroy. Those are the days. It doesn't matter what time you live in. It doesn't matter what season you're in. Like, that's the agenda that's in the world, whether we realize it or not. And so if we're not intentionally looking at having abundant life, that's where we're going to drift.
Yeah.
And so that's how I think of it. I don't know. I think that can be open to.
I don't know that I don't think like specific, like, this time is where, like it's just like we live in a fallen world where we have a real enemy.
Yep.
So every day.
Yeah.
If we're not, if we're not focusing on what we need to focus on, then every day can be.
But, well, like those distractions are purposeful, like, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So, and stop me if I'm jumping ahead, but okay. So you have done a word of the year for a long time. And, this episode's not just about picking a word or choosing, whatever. We kind of have some different parts to that, but that's kind of a starting point because, I think a lot of times our rhythms or habits maybe can come from that. Like that can develop new rhythms, new habits from a word that we're focusing on. So, maybe we have people who've never picked a word.
Yeah.
Like the one sitting here talking to you.
You're pointing at yourself.
Or someone who's like, or maybe it's because I do think there's been a slight shift, at least in my, realm of influence that like, we don't really talk about resolutions quite as much. It does sometimes, it has kind of shifted to like focusing on a word or, like I do feel like just from the point in which I can remember like, knowing about a resolution, like there has been a little bit of a shift. So maybe that's a new concept or a new thought for someone that's listening.
Yeah.
So what is it? What is it not? Maybe give us some examples of things that you have chosen in the past.
So this is the Hallie Dye definition that I wrote down. I'm not the guru on word of the year. Like I was taught it. I've learned bits and pieces from other podcasts. This is just my way I think of it. But picking a word of the year is basically like choosing a focus that you are willingly going to see the year through. So like a filter. And again, like I think it's very, like you hit on this earlier of like, it's not asking what we want to see the year through. Like the Lord might be putting a desire in that matches with what he's asking. Like, I'm not saying there won't be any want in it, but it's asking like, what do you want me to, because this is what I need from the Lord. And so, like an example might be like, if you pick the word gratitude, you might not be feeling gratitude for the season you're in, but like the Lord might lay that word on your heart and you are like, I am endeavoring to see the good things, the hard things, the mundane, like through this focus. It's not going to be an everyday thing. Yeah. You might not think about it for a month, or 3 months and then go, oh, this thing came up and like that reminds me. And so like it's choosing to focus on the things you really already feel like the Lord is laying on your heart. You're just putting a label on it.
Yeah.
And I'll go ahead. I'm kind of jumping ahead, but like this is what it's not. It's not spiritual manipulation.
Right.
Like I 100% like love stories that are like, this is a thing that every time I see a sparrow, I think of the Lord because this verse really means a lot to me. And so like when a sparrow comes sits on my windowsill, like it makes me it makes me feel seen by him and whatever. Like I think that's wonderful because like he is always with you and he is pursuing you. And if that's the thing that reminds you, then absolutely. I think sometimes we can take things like that and be like, I'm going to choose this thing. And every time I see it, I'm going to know the Lord's speaking like this. And I think there can be a little bit of spiritual manipulation, like we're choosing how the Lord is going to speak to us. And I can't quite put that into words, the difference. Like that's where I can't, like we have to take those things to scripture. Like it's able to decipher the purpose of the heart. But like I can't quite put that into words, but I just know picking a word is not going like every time I hear this word, this is what the Lord's saying. Like it's still holding everything with open hands, like, but also going like, okay, like I feel like this is where you're leading me and I'm going to move in this direction. So the best way I know how to liken that is like, let's say you're like, this person's having surgery or this person has a meeting at this time or whatever. And I really want to be praying at that time, but I'm afraid I'm going to miss it because I've got this busy day and what have you. And so I'm going to set an alarm and a reminder to pray at that time. It's not that when the alarm goes off, you're like, that was the Holy Spirit. Like, but the truth is the Holy Spirit is always prompting us. He is always with us. Like he does go before us and he is always pursuing us and showing us things. And so in that way, I think that sitting down and intentionally hearing the Lord and choosing a word is like setting a reminder on your phone that when you hear that, oh yes, that let me be reminded that's still my focus. That's still my why for the reasons I'm setting these rhythms. That's still the thing that the Lord is working out in me. And so, it's not manipulation. It's just setting reminders for ourselves. It's putting on our blinders that we're going to keep our focus because I need reminders.
Oh yeah.
So, I think that's what it is and what it's not. Also, it can be yours. You can have 2 words. It can be a phrase. It can be a song.
Yeah.
It can be a verse, or a passage. Whatever. I mean, it does not have to be what the person next to you is doing. I've had 2 words some years. If you want to change your word halfway through the year, well, there's no rules. It's not a rule book. It's not legalism. It's just a good habit. It's just a good rhythm for me to reset and go and to look back. Like now I can almost tell a mini testimony out of the chapters. Now there were years where it's like, I can't even remember what my word was for that year because I didn't focus on it as much, but I do look back and it still did shape part of it, know? And so I do think it is just kind of a neat way. And like, we'll talk about this more with habits, but it's like, pick any rhythm, like anything is better than nothing, And so I think it is a great place to start with intentionality.
Yeah.
Some examples that I've had before we switch gears from that is like when I first started, my word of the year was simplify. And it's not that I look back and think I didn't need that or that wouldn't have been what the Lord led me to or any of those things or that I was outside of his will. But I do think like where I was spiritually, this was pre-kids, early marriage. And I do think where I was at spiritually, just with like managing a household and 2 people's laundry and whatever. And, I probably was doing school and work at the same time. And young married, I mean, lots of different hats. And the word I picked was simplify. And I think it was like, that's what I want. I want to simplify, I want to streamline. And like, I think my focus was pretty circumstantial, it was like, I'm good. I just need to fix all this out here, And it's like, Lord was like, for now, that's good for now. And then I think the next year was steadfast. And steadfast has been a word that, even though it's not been my word of the year again, is one that really has shaped the way I view all words of the year and all focus and rhythms, because steadfast was freedom for me as someone who felt like pass or fail, check the box or not, I think sometimes resolution, even that word, even though resolute is a good thing, it's not that different than steadfast, but we think of resolutions as, I got to keep this every day or give it up.
Yeah.
And that's not actually true, but we do kind of have that connotation. Steadfast to me was a reminder that every time I thought about that word and every time I heard that word was like, no, like a ship sets its coordinates, I've set my sight on these things that I value. I might get blown off course. I might face a storm. I might get shipwrecked a season, but my coordinates haven't changed. I'm going to get back on course as soon as I can. And there was freedom in that. There's a lot of grace because it's not an everyday thing. It's not a pass or fail. It's a marathon versus a sprint.
Yeah.
And so that was helpful. And I look back and think that shaped a lot of my life and thinking, I think the year after that was when I had Faithful and Undaunted. And I can't remember if I had finished or was finishing my first manuscript for You're Still a Good Mom, which was titled something else at the time. And I knew enough about the publishing world and writing a book that I was going to hear a lot of no's. And so it was faithful for that has to be my reason. My reason for anything has to be faithfulness, or I'm just being a noisy gong. If I'm not doing this out of love and faithfulness for the Lord, what.
Yeah, sorry. I thought you said a wheezing gong, and I was like, that's a new
that
one.
would also be
I haven't heard of that
obnoxious.
And then it dawned on me, and I was like, that's not what she said.
I'm out here doing nothing, and I got weak lungs doing it,
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail, but I couldn't control my face. I was like, what?
It might have sounded like that. So, but it's I have my reasons have to be faithfulness. It cannot be because if this book doesn't get published that my worth crashes. I'm just doing this out of faithfulness. I'm not doing this because I have to do this thing to be worthy. So there was that part. And then Undaunted, because it was if this is what I'm faithfully supposed to do, I'm going to hear a lot of no's and I have to keep going, you know? And so that is how it was. And it was a lot, there was a lot of things that. Now I look at him steering me in the direction I was supposed to go, but felt like closed doors along the way. And so kind of ended the year going okay, that didn't look how I thought it was going to look, but I'm going to choose to end the year the same way, a little more battered than I started it, but still faithful and undaunted. What do you have for me for 2020, whatever?
Yeah.
And, might have been 2021 or something. I don't remember. And he was humility. And I was pass on that one.
Yeah.
What else do you have? And I didn't accept that until probably February or March. She's I don't think I'm hearing you clearly. I don't think that's it. And that was a brutal year, but I go back to the example of the spare tire. I've never felt so misunderstood as I did that year. And sometimes humility is humiliating.
Yeah.
And you have to go back to but I'm willing to keep going,
Right.
And that I needed that. It wasn't because I signed up for humiliation. It was because I signed up to be faithful, and he knew I needed humility over and over and over, and so could pick that word for every year and still learn
Who couldn't?
a lot. But there was that. And then I think I ended that year with a book deal, which was very unforeseen, and didn't know that was going to be the case. That was not, it came out of nowhere. We've talked about that story on the podcast before, but that was a lot. And so the next year I started with Enjoy, and it was like, not that this year is not going to be a lot of deadlines, and it was, go listen to our episode on burnout, beginning of season 4. But like at the same time, it was like, you've already done this work. You've already brought this thing. You've orchestrated things I could have never done in my best strength. And so like, I am going to function in the capacity that you give me and try to enjoy what you've orchestrated as much as possible. And so it was not a, life's great view. It was like, I mean, there were so many good things, but it was like, for me, like, let me be present in the work you're doing and take my hands off the control. Like that was kind of the emphasis. And to give an example, I won't go through all the words that we've had, but like, I was at, that year, I was at, Miss Carol Peavy's house at recording, I think season 2 maybe. And I was speaking at a mother-son event that night, and I always get nervous when I speak. And so I'm nervous, and also nervous because it's the first time I'm going to speak at like a thing that my kids, like both of the boys were going together. And so it's like, they're getting to see what I do a little bit. And it's also, I usually do women's stuff, and this is specifically to boys, and what age, like it just, I just want to always do like a good job with whatever the Lord gives me. And so I just always get nervous. And so it's the day of, I'm recording with Miss Carol, and she's just wonderful. If you haven't listened to her story, go do that immediately. And I'd been in her Heart to Home group before, so we knew each other, And so she feeds me when I get there, because that's just who she is. And she figured out that I hadn't eaten lunch and it had been a crazy day. So she's like, stop, makes lunch, which is so sweet. And I'm on my way out the door after we've recorded and visited and stuff. And I'm sure she could tell, like, I was just nervous, And she was like, hey, just enjoy tonight. And like, that sounds like such a simple thing, but when you think about it, that's really kind of a, like, you'd normally be like, hey, like, you're going to do great, or I'm praying for you, or whatever. But like, for someone to say, just enjoy tonight, like, that was the Lord. And like, I could have cried on our doorstep and might have done that. But it was just like that, first of all, it's a testament to Miss Carol and just how she lives as a vessel every day, no matter who comes in her door, whose door she goes through. Like, she is just present with what the Lord is speaking through her. But like, it was also just like that reminder to me of like, he really does speak through those things when we're intentional to listen. Yeah. And so kind of an example of like, it's not spiritual manipulation, but it is spiritual intentionality. Yeah. So anyways, I know that was kind of a long way to answer it, but
no, I love that.
You've not done Word of the Year before. You did pick one this year, and I want you to talk about that in a second. But first, you had a good idea of like, you've had a focus before, but it was a little bit different. So I want you to talk about that.
Yeah. So I don't even know. I mean, I was after kind of like going through this the first month, I was like, when was that? And I'm pretty sure it was 2024. Yeah, that would make sense. So, maybe like had started December of 23, January, thinking like, I don't know, maybe I will do a word. Or maybe we'd had who knows? Like, who knows where that even came from? The thought of like picking a word and and I kind of had the thought that, oh, maybe I will this year, because I for sure have not ever picked a word, simply because I think I have always viewed it as like a pass fail, and as a perfectionist and, all the things. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that, because I know for an entire year, somewhere along the way, we get derailed and forget and think that, like, and so it's always just kind of been one of those things that I'm like, not that it was never coming from a place of like, oh, I'm, good, but it was always like, well, what do I want? What do I don't know. And so like even started that year, which, was in the middle of mine and Colin's separation. And so that's a whole couple of podcast episodes there. But I remember like just laughing and being like, am I allowed to pick boring? Like, can boring be a word? And it's still with the focus of like, what do I want this year to look like?
Yeah, sure.
And I feel like it was just kind of funny. And I probably even said like restful or peaceful or uneventful, like any of those sounded lovely at that point in time. And I remember like probably once maybe praying about it and not really getting like a sure from the Lord. And so I don't even know where I saw it. But I had seen maybe it might have been a reel or something that somebody shared. I can't remember, about picking an attribute of God to focus on for the year. And I was like, well, that sounds kind of cool. And I ended up picking, his sovereignty to focus on. And I feel like he was like, bingo.
Yeah.
That's more along the lines of where we need to be. Just because like, just at that point I had already, tasted the depths of that and needed to continue tasting the depths of that and seeing the depths of that, just with life circumstances. And, just realizing that like at the end of the day, like I am not the one that's in control and God is. And so, it wasn't something that like I spent the whole, it was not like an everyday, oh, I'm thinking about this. I did a couple of I did a study on his sovereignty and just like the names of God or the characteristics of God and things like that. And so I was intentional like at different points throughout the year with kind of learning about like what that even means, like what that word fully means. Won't ever totally understand it, but but then ended up also like it just was a really cool thing because by the end of that year, I could clearly look back and life did not look at all what I thought it was going to look like, and just how like kind and gracious it was for the Lord to just like make it apparent and just to affirm like, hey, no, I am in control and I have a far better plan than you could ever imagine. And so that was that year, which was a really cool thing. Probably I didn't do anything this past year. But I don't know. I just thought, so like, that's just like another example of something that, like, even if it's not a word, I mean, there's plenty of things, I don't think it's ever a bad option to focus on the Lord's character and learning about it. So,
but for 2026, you did kind of get your
I did
2025 request or 2024. I don't know anything.
That is true. Different meanings, though. Different meanings. Still not.
Well, it always is.
Yes. Already I was like, oh, well, okay. Well, he's like, I'll give you what you asked for, but you need to understand a few things about that word.
Yeah.
So no, I, probably wouldn't have given a whole lot of thought to picking a word or anything this year necessarily. Maybe I would have, but when we kind of had the conversation and you were like, we've been asked to possibly go talk at mom time and this is kind of what it's about. I was like, oh, well, now I'm nervous because I don't really pick words of the year. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll pray about it this time and, actually like sit down and be intentional and ask the Lord. And it was really funny because I do feel like it was pretty like immediate that I just felt like that word came into mind. And I was like, hey, we've been here before. I'm not, I like kind of laughed it off and was like, no, like that. I don't know why that's coming in my brain again, but it's there. And also because like my definition of rest.
Yes, say what the word is.
Yeah. Yes, rest is my word.
Yeah.
But my definition of rest, I was like, well, I mean, there's a newborn coming, so we all know that's not going to happen. And so I kind of just laughed and was just like, I mean, okay, nope, let's try again. And so just kind of kept praying about it, and it just kept coming up. And I don't even know, like, it's just kind of one of those things where like, I kind of maybe just sat down to like type out some thoughts, because when we started to kind of talk through like the habits and rhythms aspect of what we were talking about, I'm like, I got that. I can talk about that all day long. But just journaling and kind of thinking through and just praying again and being like, Lord, is this really like is this like really my focus? Like, or am I, misinterpreting that? But just kind of came to this realization of like, no, actually what I really do need, and because it did sound nice. I mean, when you toss that word out there, like, I don't know any of us who would be like, nah, I won't take that one. But just realized like coming off of holiday season and just, second to entering third trimester, 2 kids. It was just a crazy, and it's always a busy time. We did have a couple of like down days, which was really nice. But probably like from the beginning of December on, it was just kind of wild, and I was exhausted. And so, there was a part of me that was like, I have reached almost feeling like a state of burnout a little bit, or just overwhelmed from just mental, physical, emotional, like I don't know, just all the things. Yeah. And so, just like kind of the more I was just praying about it, I realized like, no, rest is really what I need, but it doesn't necessarily come immediately in the form of like a literal sleep, physical sleep, that's not really what the issue was. It's just that like, I recognized, hey, you've fallen back into some self-dependency and self-reliance and thinking that everything is your responsibility and you have to take care of everything. And, and like the fact of the matter is, as moms, like we have a lot of things that we have people who depend on us. Yeah. And so I think it's an easy trap to fall into, or an easy cycle to get back into as a mom, of feeling like everything is like the world's on our shoulders. And it's like, no, it's not. And so, really kind of just shaped like my understanding of like, no, I need to learn what it means to rest in the Lord. And I do think that there is an aspect of physical rest, of like one of the things that is a part of that, like kind of when I listed out, like, well, what is this going to look like? Is learning how to like honor the Sabbath, or like, be intentional about taking and scheduling time for rest, because I don't do that well. Colin will standing ovation in the background. He's like, yes, someone please teach her. Because I don't like, I don't know, so I do struggle with like the stopping, the doing and the pausing and all of that. But I do think that it's also more of a focus on, again, it's kind of funny because I think it ties into like God's sovereignty of like remembering that like I'm not in control and I'm not dependent upon myself. I'm dependent on the Lord, and being able to rest and have a peace, I think, in my spirit, even in the midst of chaos, because the reality is there's going to be chaos in our lives. And that's kind of like I got a study on rest, because I mean, I feel like that's part of it for me, is starting off with, okay, well, like, how can I learn? Like, what does it even mean to rest in the Lord? And like, what does the Bible say about that? And what does the Lord say about that?
Excellent point. Like, yes, with scripture, and also like, what does he say? And also like, what books are out there that will help me with this new focus?
Yeah. Cause I feel like that for me is, it's a spiritual, well, I mean, it is, I could be wrong, but I mean, I feel like it would show up on a spiritual disciplines list that it's important. I mean, on day 7, God rested not because he needed to, but because He knew we needed to, and we needed that model. But, and so I think a big part of it is kind of just learning, like, this is spiritual discipline that I don't do well, and I have lots of room for growth in.
Yeah.
And so, taking the time to start off learning about that first and putting things into practice.
I think rest, like listening to you talk, like sometimes, because we'll talk about rhythms and habits in a second. And like, I think sometimes it can be like, well, why is it that important if I do one load of laundry a day? You know what I mean? Right. Like, what's that really going to impact in the long run? And it's like, well, maybe on the surface, it doesn't look spiritual to like form this habit, you know? But like when you aren't stressed and bogged down on Monday because nobody has clean stuff and you're able to be present, like it's setting the space for that, you know, for you. And it's like rest can be the same way. Like it's like almost the first question is like, what's the purpose? Like, what is the why? And like, we might not know it before we do it, but it's like, if I am filled anew with him after my Sabbath, then like I'm able to do these other things. Yes. And so it's like, one of the things, like all of these things basically take faith. Yeah. They take faith because it's like, you might not know the why when you set it. And like for me, rest, I know has been that way and is another example of something we could pick every year and, you know, still never be good at or understand totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good. Let me think. Where am I? Got off my notes.
I know.
Okay. You, like, we laughed about this a lot in Mom Time, and I feel like, you know, it'll just be evident in the way we talk about things. But I mean, like that kind of leads into like our rhythms for the year, because rest is something, whether that's your word of the year or not, like should be a rhythm that we've set. Like God modeled it in Genesis. He commanded it in the Old Testament, honor the Sabbath, keep it holy. Then we see Jesus like pull away, often. The scripture says he pulled away often to be with the Father, you know.
There's one of the verses that, because I mean, that was one of my things, was like just pulling verses that talk about rest throughout the Bible. And in Mark chapter 6:31, this is Jesus talking. It says, come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. And I mean, I loved that, like that one for sure. Again, just like him setting that example and doing, I mean, because I don't know. I mean, he's human at that point. So
he's 100% God, 100% human.
And so like just to see the example of that and, you know, how he made time for it too. So.
Well, and like, it's so interesting. Like we've talked about gentle and lowly before, like the book and the concept and all the above. But like when he says to me, come to me, all you who are weary, you know, for my burden is easy. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. I always mix those two. I know. I should have written those verses down.
Hold on. Do I have that? I might have had that. I don't know. Well, my version may be a little different.
Yeah, go for it.
It just says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly. That's a different one. That's not the same one.
No, they're connected. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it's just part of that one. Anyways, sorry, not helpful.
Well, no, it is helpful. But it's like, you know, he says, come to me, all who are weary, for I will give you rest. Yes. And it's like, one, you've got to draw near to him intentionally to get that soul deep rest.
Well, yeah, because I love how, that's, you will find rest for your souls. Yes. Is somewhere in the mix of that whole section. Yeah. That it, you know, sometimes, you know, in the midst of chaos, what we need is the rest for our souls to know that like, he's in control.
Well, and it's like, how cool is it that like the concept of rest there is tied to him being gentle and lowly? It's like, we're not going to be able to like experience that except for that way, you know? Right. Like, and so I love that. Having said that, going into like rhythms, you are by nature good at rhythms and habits and that sort of thing. And so, and like, you know, rest is one of those that we all need to set. Right. But, being someone who does tend to like stick to routines and you know, you have habits, that that you've had for years and like keep up with them. And no, it doesn't have to be perfection, but like, what is something that you can say for people who are like, I don't even know like where to start. I don't know, like, what's some advice for someone listening that feels overwhelmed with starting new rhythms or habits?
Yeah. I would say, I mean, pick one thing, like stick to one thing. Because even as somebody who that does come naturally for, if I make a list of things that I want, you know, and I'll use this as an example just because it does come up sometimes, and we'll probably, I think, maybe toss it out there as just a good resource, but the Habits of the Household book. For someone like, I think for all people, it's a fantastic resource. But I know for me, like one of my good friends, like years ago, that recommended that I read that book, who also has a very similar personality to me, was like, hey, before you open that book, be warned that like you cannot do all of these things. Because I can read things like that and think, oh, well, we need this habit here and this habit here. Oh, and then we need to make an adjustment here and make an adjustment there. And it was also attempted to start that in the season. That made no sense for me to attempt to start that. And so, even I can get overwhelmed with, oh, well, this isn't working and this isn't working and this isn't, you know, like we can take stock of our lives. And I think you should. Like, I think it's a great place to start, to think through all of the different aspects of life, whether that's marriage, family, work, you know, whatever that is, and establish like, or even just taking a look at your day as a whole and identifying, okay, well, is there a part of the day that just feels absolutely chaotic every day? It doesn't ever feel any better, like nothing, you know, whatever that is. And I think it's fine to have a list of things, but I think you need to start with a focus in one place. Because even for someone who does naturally just have rhythms and habits, if I were to sit down with all the things that I might want to try or do differently or maybe switch, and recognizing that habits are going to change, like your rhythms are going to change. They could change within a year, depending on, you know, stages of life of kids and all kinds of things. Like, I'm about to have a whole shift. I was about to say, our rhythm is about to really shift. Everybody's world is about to get rocked. But if you focus in one area, then it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And I'd say start with whatever feels either the heaviest or the most chaotic, or just feels like this is draining me every day. Start there. And think through one thing that could change or could be different, and stick to that one thing. And that's my favorite thing about like just the concept of a habit. It's hard. They're not easy, especially if it's not like a thing that comes natural. Like Colin and I are very different. That is not a natural tendency of his. He's kind of like had to learn how to do that a little bit, or like fit into the rhythms, you know. But I forgot. I lost my train of thought. Oh, that's what I love about just like once you get started and once you have a new rhythm set, if it's working great, then you keep it up. And then eventually it's not something you even think about. It does not it doesn't take up your brain space anymore. Like, I should have, because I remember I was talking about this and I can't remember what the number of days that it takes to form a new habit, but like rhythm, whatever it is, I mean, you just put forth your effort and your intention of, okay, we're going to try this thing for however many days.
I've heard different things. I was looking it up. It says on average, like 66 days, so probably 2 months. But I mean, I've heard different things.
I have. It probably depends
on what the habit is.
Probably so.
But like, there's science behind it, you know, like it's creating a literal new rut in your brain from point A to point B, you know.
And that does take effort, and it does take intentionality, and it's not always the easiest. But once it's there and once it becomes a rhythm, it's not something that you have to, like, you don't think about it anymore. It's just something you do. And so, I mean, I would just say start one place at a time.
Frees up brain space for you to look at the next thing if you want, you know, like, and I think too, like in what you were saying, like I was also thinking like, that's such good advice because I think sometimes like, obviously the things that can keep us from doing it is like feeling like we've got to be perfect, we've got to get it down or whatever, but like also like coming back to your why, you know, if your why is to serve efficiency at the highest calling, like you're not, that's not going to be motivating, you know, like, but if your why is like, this frees up some brain space for me to be present at the dinner table or present with friends or whatever, like whatever that is in your life, the season that you're in, like that frees up some space because you aren't so focused on those tasks. And so it's like, that is worthy, you know, and that kind of like keeps your motivation to work on that thing.
Absolutely. Well, and that to me was when we did the Habits of the Household study on Wednesday night in the fall. For me, that was the biggest conviction was, you know, because I feel like kind of maybe the whole point of that book, not to like put words into his mouth, but is like, okay, step one, do we have habits? You know, like, do we have rhythms? Step two, once we have them, like, how are we being intentional? And I feel like that was the part for me that was convicting of, we have plenty of rhythms, but like, what am I doing with those routines and in that time? Because we have it, like we have the rhythms and we have the space for that. But how am I using that time for the kingdom? You know, with my kids, with my, you know, whatever situation, like, you know, and a lot of ours were family related of just like, well, how am I using that time to, you know, disciple and you know, I don't know. So
well, like I like when people have asked like, what's that book about, or like what does that mean, you know, like I feel like the words that always come to my mind are like, if we really, again, not to put words in his mouth, but if we really believe what we profess we believe, is that reflected in our lives? And like I think in past seasons, when college and younger years, like it can be like, am I living according to his word? Look, I sin, I fall short. That's not really like I'm walking with the Lord. I'm like doing my best to live a God honoring life. Like it's not a 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out thing that, you know, sometimes we have to go through in college or whatever, high school, but that's not where I'm at now. But now it's like, but those values that you profess, like, are they anywhere in your week? Are they anywhere in your month? Like some things might not be everyday things, but like, you know, and I think sometimes we can make so many habits and rhythms based on feeling, and you're not creating conduits to get to those places we want. Like if I went to church every time I felt like going to church, it probably wouldn't be as often because we might not have slept the night before or whatever, or I'm just exhausted or whatever. I mean, as an introvert, sometimes I'm like, I just want a hermit today, you know, or whatever. But the habit of going to church every week is like, sometimes the most impactful days have been the days I didn't want to show up, you know, and I'm not saying I don't want to go to church, but I'm just using that as an example of like, that's a weekly rhythm that many of us keep. It's like, okay, why? Well, because I know that good can come out of it. Okay, well, that can be in a lot of other areas, you know? And so like, no, it doesn't have to be legalistic on every single rhythm that we set. And yet, like, there is such rich goodness and possibility out of keeping those. And so I feel like it's Justin Whitmore early who wrote it. Like he does such a good job of being like, look, it doesn't have to be this ritualistic thing, but like it really does shape your life, you know, to intentionally set those things. And
what is it he says?
I was just saying that like our habits don't change God's love for us, but God's love for us should change our habits. And so, you know, it's just like, like, you know, day in and day out, like I want to do those things that, and I was thinking about this, like, we do eat when we're hungry, but like we also like, we don't have to go like, I don't know if I'm going to eat today. You know what I mean? Like that is a rhythm we have every day, or should. If you don't, you should.
Yeah.
You know, but like, that's a rhythm that we have that we don't have to revisit our feelings on.
Right.
You know, and we don't go like, well, that's legalistic that we eat every day.
Right.
But like, yeah, God's word is also sustenance. And so like, I might eat a boring meal all week long, but I'm not craving this.
Right.
I don't really want to eat it, but like, you might feel that way about your quiet time at times, and you're still getting sustenance that you might not feel that you are putting in. So
yeah,
just, I don't know.
No, I love that. Okay. So we, on the flip side, like you talk about how a lot of times you can struggle with, you know, being more organized or not being, as routined by nature. So tell us what advice you can give, or what you would say to that.
What advice,
encouragement
can I give?
You have plenty.
Yeah. So to put this into perspective, your algorithm is geared towards you. You know, for people who don't know that, you're not seeing the same things that everyone's seeing. Yes. Like, you're seeing your algorithm, and
unless you send each other reels, and then your algorithm's like, oh, you like this. Okay.
I know.
Like, there have been many times you sent me stuff, and then I start seeing like 50 gajillion of those. I'm like, wait a minute. I think it was funny, but
one thing, she loves this.
She really likes it.
Can't get enough. So yes. So like, yeah, I think I can't remember who, but I've messaged someone before, like, stop messing with my algorithm. But I do get an offensive amount of ADHD propaganda through my algorithm, and I'm sorry to report that it all resonates deeply with me. So, I don't know. That's true, not, whatever. Anyway, there's lots of opinions on ADHD, but one of the ones that made me LOL was one that says, an old ADHD proverb is, it doesn't have to be finished. It just has to be perfect. And it was like, yes, you know.
What is it if it has to be both?
Yeah.
That's where I'd fall. That's a camp
OCD.
I was about to say OCD. That's the camp I would live in.
It has to be done, and it better be right. Yeah. That, though, like, as funny as it is like, it's funny because that's impossible. You know what I mean? Like, something can't be perfect if you don't work at it. But like, that is the expectations of someone who operates on a procrastination, like, mindset of, a lot of times I'd be like, I have to, okay, let me back up. When I was working on the book, and like, I had set down deadlines I had to meet, because like, there's a lot of rounds of edits and things like that, and like changing whole chapters. So rewriting whole portions, and actually changing the substance. And so there were just different things like that. And, like, for me, I've always been a procrastinator growing up, even though I love to write and all those things. Like, it would always be down to the wire. And I just always like, that's my personality, whatever. And then you get to thinking, well, I work better under pressure. Well, this is what I really think it boils down to, because I couldn't do that with the book. Like, one, it was too big of a deal, it stressed me out. Two, I might have a sick kid that week. Like, I can't rely on being able to pull all-nighters or whatever. Like, I have to be ahead or I'm behind. And so I just had to shift gears a lot. Not that I haven't worked on this prior to that, but that was a big turning point. And it was like, oh, I think I like to get down to the wire because I can't question if it's perfect. I have to finish, and whatever I get has to be good enough. Yeah. And that let me off the hook of it needing to be perfect. And I'm like, oh, well, I can let myself off the hook 2 weeks before too. Right. Like, it's whatever is done, that's good enough, and so like, I think perfection a lot of times drives our stress or overwhelm of setting a habit. And it's like, I want to go back to like, anything you set is good and helpful. Like, we've laughed.
And if it's not, it can change.
It can change. Like, you can retouch the habit.
Yes.
Well, like, for instance, right now, like, we're in a home that is, for us, feels small for our purposes, like, for a couple of reasons. Like, we would like for our kids as they get older to have their own bedrooms. Everybody doesn't do that. That's fine. Like we've loved the boys sharing. We're at a stage where we would like to do that. And I want to say that carefully because sometimes in America we think we have to have that.
Right.
We don't, but we would like to. And so like we don't have that right now. So we've got 2 sharing room that are in different stages of life. One needs to talk about things. The other one's not ready to hear about or whatever, just some things like that. And some moments of discipleship that we would like to have spaces for.
Right.
And then also we're homeschooling. We're all in the same room and different things. And so right now, like our rhythms feel a little bit on hold because I know in a month or 2 or whatever.
In a month.
In a month.
Speak it into existence.
We are going to spiritually manipulate that. Forgive us, Father, if we know exactly what we do. But like, I know eventually we will have different rhythms. And so in some ways, but like I've been very conscious knowing my personality to be like, but we're still going to set some. We might change them in a month. We're still going to set some. We're not going to live our life on hold. So I think sometimes we can do that physically, but I think sometimes we can do that spiritually. Like, well, I'm in this season where I don't have time for XYZ. And so I'm not going to prioritize that. And it's like, well, you can do it in a way.
Yes.
It doesn't have to
I
be.
think that's a great point.
Yeah. So those are the things I would say. Also, you hit on this earlier really well of like, we do have habits, like I gave the example of mom time of like, when I put the kids down and fall into the trap of scrolling for 45 minutes, that's a habit. It's not one I chose willingly on any night or the one that I want.
Right.
But it is a habit that I can make and fall into. And so like maybe that habit is I'm plugging my phone in before I put the kids down and I'm not touching it again until I set my alarm, because I want to read tonight or I want to journal or whatever that looks like.
Right.
Spend some time with my spouse. But one of the things 2 things that I think are really applicable, but like one, the home edit that was big, I'm not saying it's not big now, but it was like, there was a Netflix show at the same time they were launching a book and kind of had its like moment of everyone heard about it. But the home edit, if you haven't, is like, they would go in and organize closets, homes, spaces, whatever. And I think in the book, I watched the show and read the book, but I think in the book it said like, if you think you're not capable of keeping organization or what have, I mean, their thing is physical organization. So like that was their bread and butter. So they're speaking to that, but this can apply to anything. If you think you're not capable or I'm not this, like you are, and I can prove it, I give you the silverware drawer.
Yeah.
You learned, whatever age that you were taught to unload the dishwasher, to put the spoons in this slot, the forks here, and the knives. And we've joked, if you haven't, please see someone. Highly recommend starting there. That's your one thing to start with.
I can't even.
Please don't tell Lindsay. She won't be able to sleep.
No. I can't even picture that amount of chaos. Oh, the stress.
But as much as we joke, like, that's the way we're living in some areas. That's like, that is just like the mental capacity of making 1,000 decisions that you don't just set and keep takes up more space mentally than you realize. And so just proof that you are able to establish a system and keep it. And so can your 6-year-old when they unload your dishwasher. So like there are other things you can set and keep. Are there better ways to organize silverware? Maybe, but it works. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be the best.
Yes.
The next thing I'd say before switching gears is, we're going to talk more about this, but there's a company, I think the company is called Cultivate What Matters.
I think so.
And they have a lot of things. I've ordered a couple of things this year that are around habits and rhythms, just because I'm like interested to see how they lead in that. But I do believe it's a faith-based company. It's not like overtly necessarily like it kind of, you know, like I could see someone who is like secular still being able to use their stuff, but there is a lot of like faith emphasis in their stuff. But they have this thing called Power Sheets Goal Planner, and there's different versions. Like I don't know all the things they offer, but it takes some of the, like, it takes just the where do I start and kind of narrows you into some areas, and we'll talk more about that. But one of the things that it had you do there, it's kind of like a journal a little bit in the beginning. And I've ordered it a couple years. It's been a year or two since I've done it. But one time I remember one of the questions being like, so often we go through life being, I'm not a math person. I'm not an organized person. I'm not a creative person. Like, what's something that you tend to say, I'm not this?
Right.
And let's look at it, because a lot of times we can be like, I'm not a math person. I can't make a budget. Well, yeah, you can. And if you're single, you have to, like, like you don't have a spouse that's financially oriented or whatever. Like, and yes, you can do that. You don't have to be the best in order to be able to do it well.
Right.
And so like, I think take that, and then like my advice there would be like, shift your mindset from thinking I have to be the best at this thing to I'm going to seek goodness. Like, I'm just going to seek goodness in this area. Like, goodness is wholesome and good and right and pure. It's not top of the line.
Yeah.
And like, that's what we should be seeking.
Right.
So those are the things that I would say there.
Yeah.
And everything that we've talked about, Lindsay, how do we enter into these new beginnings and rhythms and habits and focuses and move forward without feeling overwhelmed and like things have to be perfect?
Let me know when you see it. No, I'm kidding.
Part 2 coming in a couple years.
Yeah. When I have actually learned that. I think it is just, I don't know that I have just like a clear-cut answer to that, because it is something that I struggle with. I would say just over the course of the past few years of life and just lessons learned and things the Lord has taught me, I think that has been something that has improved in my life. Also, I think just becoming a mom and having small people, like, there's just some part of like learning how to like let go, that like things are not going to just be exactly so all the time. And I have to, and I think some of our personalities lend themselves to that more than other people's. And so like, not everybody's walking around a perfectionist, but so it's probably not as hard or doesn't feel quite as overwhelming. But I think ultimately just remembering like the why behind what you're doing really does shift like the perspective, that it's like, this doesn't have to be just another thing I check off my list. It doesn't have to be. And that like a lot of times the reason to have habits and rhythms in the first place is to create that margin for your spiritual life, for your family, for your marriage, for whatever that is, to bring peace.
Yeah.
And I think perfectionism a lot of times is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Because it feels chaotic unless it is exactly like this.
And it's not like, I love that you said it's creating margin for those things, because I think perfectionism is I'm going to create those things.
Yeah.
Because it's control. Like you're manufacturing everything. And like peace isn't going to come through circumstances, but you can make margin for that.
Yes. And so I think it's just this is a thing that I have to remember constantly. One, and also because I think this is another just dynamic of my personality of like coming to this place of realization that like, hey, it's okay if something's not working and you change it, like change is okay sometimes.
I was going to say like,
I'm not good at that.
I think one of the things we haven't hit on is like, sometimes like in order to make a habit, like our day's filled.
Yeah.
Your day's filled. Like with distraction, with good things, with priorities, whatever it is, it's full. And we fill that, but you're going to have to change some things, maybe change some priorities and values in order to
for sure
move to where you want to be.
Yes, absolutely. But I think it's just from, I don't know, like for me anyways, like when I find myself like kind of, I mean, I don't know 100% how to describe it, but I know when I'm there.
Yeah.
Of just feeling tense and I'm worked up and irritable and all these things. And it's like, okay,
yeah,
hold on a second. Why? Why do you feel that way? And so I think when it comes to habits and things like that, it's just making us minor change and resting in the fact that like we're going to try this. And if it's still not working, try something different, you know, think about something different. But in everything, it's inviting the Lord into it. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, as a perfectionist, as someone who is more self-reliant, I can forget. And that's whenever I start to feel overwhelmed by whatever that is. And so whether it's habits, rhythms, whatever it is that you're trying to do, don't leave the Lord out of that equation.
I think also like you bring up a good point that I forgot to say earlier, like it also like brings an accountability when you have set a focus, because like I know your word of the year. So like come April, I might be like, hey, like, how are you resting in the Lord, even if you're not sleeping, you know, or whatever, or like, can I help in this way so you can rest, you know, and it's like, you don't want to ask for help, you know, whatever, like whatever that looks like, you have kind of that accountability and like shared experience. Like the night before we were speaking at Mom Time, Emily Jones called and was like, what are y'all talking about tomorrow and whatever. And I told her and she was like, well, do you want to hear my word of the year? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And now I know where she's at and what, you know.
Wait, speaking of which, did you share your word of the year?
Share
you haven't. I was about to say, because I know at one point you hadn't like landed on it yet. And so, sorry, didn't mean to derail you, but you saying that was like, wait a minute, you didn't say yours.
Yeah. Okay, so my word of the year this year is unfettered.
Oh.
And like I think what led me to that was I feel like it's the first time, like I worked on my book for 5 years. I didn't know where it was going or how long it was going to be, but that's from start to finish. Like it was 5 years of working on that book. I still had interviews in December, like on it, you know, like it's still sort of ongoing marketing wise. And I mean, I obviously want to continue to share it. I believe in the message for moms. And so, you know, like that was a project that was, even though the podcast was going and speaking things change and our the rhythms change as far as school and different things and ages of kids, like that was something that was ongoing through all of those seasons. And so it was a lot of mental capacity that was worth every minute. And like we just started homeschooling, like we're in a new season of life. We're moving into a new house. I'm not working on the same project anymore. Like it is finished in a way, even though I'll always be sharing about it and promoting it with the right intentions. Like, but like, I found myself like wanting to paint more and like wanting, like, you know, I might do this in that room because I don't have plans for everything at the house. And like, I like interiors and fashion because like I do like, just, I don't know, like there's a part of me that like, it's just the way the Lord designed me that like needs a creative outlet sometimes. And like the book was that, but then it did have to become regimented because you do have to cross your T's and dot your I's and, you know, all those things. And thankfully had wonderful people to help me do that well. But like now it's like a blank slate. And so it was like I knew it was going to be something creativity wise. But it was like that word didn't feel right, you know, and that's why I think like it takes some journaling and like working with words to be like, what, this doesn't quite hit the mark. And then was kind of talking about it with Erica some on the phone, and she was like, it sounds like your word's freedom. I was like, that felt a little too America for me, you know, like I was like, I don't know. But I mean, it like does hit the nail on the head a little bit of like, okay, like making things my own. But I landed on, through synonyms and praying and all those things, unfettered because it's unhindered. And to go back to those verses that we talked about at the beginning, it says, therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Well, let me back up. Not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. And I think, I can't remember what version it might be. It might be the NLT. And there's a version that says thoughtlessly, I think. I don't think I'm making that up. And I'm like, I live thoughtfully, but do I live thinking about what the Lord wants, And I think a lot of times, like, I've really been thinking about, like, writing more about uprooting people pleasing, because that's something that has been a big part of my story, and I haven't, like, actually written towards that a lot. And I just think, like, one of the ways that I still need to uproot that in my life, not that it won't be forever, is, like, I still can care a lot of what people think. And it might not change what I do. Like, I might still make my decision, but I filter a lot of my choices and decisions through what would that, what would they think, or what would whatever. And different people, but I just can think, like, for instance, when I'm speaking at an event, like, well, how should this go? Like, how would that person speak? And, like, I think accountability, wisdom, having people that you ask or listen to or whatever to learn is great. And I'm going to continue to do that. But also to be like, live unhindered in your callings and your giftings, seeking the Lord, yes, and wise counsel, but also, like, Jackie Hill Perry doesn't speak like Priscilla Shirer does. Tim Keller doesn't speak like either of them do. Like, just like, they all have their gifts, and that's what makes them effective in their callings. And, like, I love all of those voices, and mine's not any of those, and so all that to say, like, in the things that I'm doing, yes, it's blank slates, but, like, I want to live thoughtfully towards his purposes and, like, not worried about how things should be, but, like, what do you have? So
I love that.
That's kind of my word. They're already having opposition. But, so yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
We'll go into that story, but
always. Yes. So anyways, all that to say, just in my own thoughts, not from anybody, but anyways, so yeah, that's my word of the year.
Awesome.
I think too, like, I'd close with this, like, I talked about steadfast and, like, ship's coordinates, but, like, we talked about this a lot at mom time, and it's helpful for me. But when you, going back to that example and that illustration of ship's coordinates, like, when you change the coordinates 2 degrees, 3 degrees, like, does not look like much at all where you're at. But over the course of time, over the course of space and distance, like, that ship will end up miles from where it would have had you not shifted. And, like, going back to the power sheets goal planner I was talking about, I found one because I've been packing to move, and I found one and just was like, let me just see, like, what year was this and what did I write? And was looking back at, like, the areas I chose, and none of the things that I put, like, set goals happened that year, but they've all happened since. Yeah. And I think that was 4 years ago, maybe.
Right.
And, like, how cool, like, those things have happened and shifted. Yes, slowly, but one step at a time, 1 degree at a time over the course of years. Nowhere near,
Yes.
And, like, that has been reassuring, that, like, I have moved,
yes. And just I think that plays into encouragement of, it doesn't have to be a checklist. It doesn't have to be perfect. And you may or may not, like, actually see results within this year, whatever it is that you've set. But it does shift your focus, even if it's the smallest amount. And, like, you may not even realize it at first. So now I think it's encouraging.
Yep. In closing, like, do you want to kind of just talk through some of the area, like, we had resources to hand out, and we'll link the power sheets just for anybody that's like, you know what, I've never thought about that. But maybe just some areas, and, like, explain the 1 to 10 scale
Oh, yeah.
And just like people can literally write their own and do it with their spouse or a friend or, know, with the Lord, obviously. Just kind of like what that looks like and why that would be helpful.
Yeah. I think you had said, because I'd never seen power sheets before, have since ordered. I think mine just came in. So I'm excited to do that. But basically it's a way to start with reflection from the past year in different areas of life. So, and you may have to help me remember some of them, but, family, friendships, relationships, marriage, if that applies to you,
work and learning, recreation.
Recreation. That was, I was like, what was the word that it used? Recreation, which we thought was kind of cool. Finances.
Yeah. Health and wellness. I would even challenge you, rest.
Yeah. Spiritual, your spiritual life, maybe spiritual disciplines.
Yeah.
Would be, and it basically just kind of asks you to rank like on a scale of 1 to 10, like how you felt like, how you felt maybe in that category, like whether what your habits or just what life looked like over the past year in each one of those categories. Yeah. And then to kind of give just, a couple of points as to like, why did you pick that number? Like, why did you land there?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. One, I think it's to be two parts. One, it could be encouraging just because, to be able to look back and say, well, actually, no, like we did do, like this was like a good place for rhythms, or like this area of life, like we did something different this year and like it worked really well. Yeah. And so I think that's encouraging to take stock of what things actually did go well. Cause I mean, I think we can start off thinking like, oh, we've got to be better about everything. And it's like, well, not necessarily. Like you might already have some areas that you're like doing well. Like, you've set some things in place. But then two, I think it can give you a really good starting point for where do we need better rhythms? Because if you have an area that has a lower number and you recognize that, then like let that be your one place that you start. Let that be the one rhythm that you set or think through to change. And so I just think that's a really cool way to start before you ever even, get into anything else, to kind of just reflect and take stock of the year that has passed.
It's funny too. Like I do think it's good to like, when you do this, and everybody listening, you should do it. Yeah. Like make your own categories. Yeah. Rank them 1 through 10 and then write your why and where you'd like to see change, or whatever. But Andrew and I went like that night we did our own and then like we compared notes after the kids.
I was just thinking like that would be a fun thing to do, like with your spouse.
It really was. And like two things. One, we agreed like honestly we should do this probably once a month in some capacity, whether that's parenting, whatever, discipleship with kids, like finances, budget, whatever, like just to kind of rank and give feedback. And it takes the pressure off of like, hey, you're spending too much on this, or I don't think you're doing a good job here, but to like bring self-awareness in, but also like opens up communication. But the second thing I would say is like, it also like kind of shows us where maybe our expectations or definitions could be faulty. Yeah. A little bit, or just could be shifted because like we ranked different things on different numbers. And like, obviously, like my health and wellness doesn't have to be his health and wellness necessarily, but like, on some of the things where we cross, it was like, I obviously view finances differently than he does because he is, he's the breadwinner in our house. And so like, there's a lot more pressure on him, and like maybe what he thinks of is good enough is based off him or whatever. But like, for me, it was like, like whatever, like, like I feel great about it, which like puts the responsibility on me to check in with him, but also him to be like, oh, my family's taken care of, like it just, sometimes it's like, oh, well, you're right. We did do more community last year then. Like that was one of the things.
Yeah. Community. That was one.
It's like, oh yeah, we did have more community. Like, or well, we both ranked it on the same number and we need to do this, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of cool. Like there's a little bit of accountability and like perspective when you compare with somebody else.
We haven't done it yet, but I had the thought that like that, because I still have some of the little papers where we had that, but I was like, we can both do that. That'd be fun.
Yeah. That was fun. Yeah. Well, Lindsay, thanks for diving into that.
Of course.
Today. It was fun.
It was.
And thank you all so much for listening in this week, and we will see you next week on The Saltworks.
This is my story. This is your story.